Right, so welcome to another conversation. So today I'm joined by Maddy Koko, who um, I I think a lot of people will know you, and a lot of people will maybe not know you because you, to my knowledge anyway. Now this is just how I came to discover you. Other people may know more things about you that I don't know, but my understanding is that you were not really publicly antinatalist online, and then you put up one video because you run a YouTube channel, but it's on a different topic, and then you just put up
Yeah,
a video to sort of celebrate a certain landmark that you hit, a milestone, and
yeah.
it just came out of nowhere. So then loads of antinatalists were like, "Oh, who's this guy? Is that it?" Or were you sort of like, were you more openly online as well, or was it just that video where you opened yourself up to the world?
No, you're right, Lawrence. So I usually make videos about electric cycles. So I
Mm,
have no connection with antinatalism whatsoever on my channel, particularly. I don't comment about it. I have never shared it with anyone. On Instagram,
mm,
maybe I have done it a couple of times. But my channel is primarily about electric bicycles, and
mm.
when I reached a milestone of 50,000 subscribers, so that is when I thought about making a video about something that I personally believe in and that my subscribers won't know, subscribers and
Yeah.
viewers. S- So that is when I made a video about antinatalism, and that's quite the story about it.
Yeah, yeah. It was. Obviously, I'll link the video in the description for anyone to see. But it was a really good video, even though I mean there were English subtitles, but you weren't speaking in English. Although there were actually some parts that you did say in English, some small parts. Um, but
Right.
even as someone who didn't understand the language that it was in, but I had the subtitles, it was still like a really well put together video, even for someone watching it who doesn't speak the language that you were speaking in. So big congrats on like
Thank you
putting the
so
video
much.
together. It was like good production quality, and well well thought out as well, because I think you approached it knowing that probably most people who were going to watch it had never heard of antinatalism before, and
Yeah.
you really catered to that audience because you really went back to basics and tried to talk about it in really understandable terms for the average person. But
Right.
before we get into all of that, I just want to go back to your YouTube channel generally. So how did you get into YouTube to start with, and what's like the progression of your YouTube channel been? Because we talked about it a bit before we started recording, but do you just want to share for everyone watching?
Certainly. So I started my YouTube channel with the base content being vegan recipes, which were easy to make and which were easy to make using the ingredients available locally here in India. So with the idea was that when I just became vegan, which was back in 2014 or 15, I don't remember, it was a little bit difficult for me to find vegan ingredients, or a
Mm,
lot of products which were in the shelf had milk solids mentioned in them, and the recipes. Even though India has a lot of vegetarian recipes and a vegetarian population, but veganism is still not that common as vegetarianism is. So
mm,
people, and it's very dairy heavy. So if you go out and to a restaurant, say Punjabi restaurant, then they'll add ghee, butter, cheese. So
mm,
a lot of the recipes doesn't necessarily have to have ghee, but it's in our culture, you can say. And so that is my intention to start the channel, was to convey the message that it's actually easier to be a vegan and to consume vegan food if
mm,
you just skip few ingredients. You don't even need to
mm,
find alternatives. You don't need to spend even more money. You just have to reduce the cost and reduce the amount of ingredients, and that was the primary goal, so that even I can learn how to make food easily, and I can share it with other people as well. So that was how I started my channel, and I did vegan recipes for a couple of years, and it wasn't working out, to be honest. It
mm,
The subscriber count was, it reached about 20K, 15, 20K, but the progression was very slow.
mm,
And I wasn't very keen on taking sponsorships. In the sense, if I don't like a product, the payment that was getting being given to me was to promote the product. But if I personally didn't like it, I didn't want it to be like, okay, if somebody is claiming this product is nice, so that we'll buy it. That doesn't give a good rep to the channel. So I didn't want it to go that way. So because of financial constraints and because of constraints in the analytical constraints that it wasn't growing, I decided to explore what more I can do on the channel, and that is how I experimented and went into electric cycles. So I had an electric cycle myself, which I used to commute from my home to office. That was about 20 kilometers distance, and that is when I realized that electric cycles are very easy. It consumes a lot less energy, and actually consumes a lot less of your time, rather than getting stuck in traffic during the commute. And that again point made me realize, okay, I can just try out making videos about electric cycle. And I started off with my Hero Electro, which is a brand of cycle which I owned. I started making videos about this particular cycle, which grew, and then a couple of more brands approached me, and that is how I started the channel. Really, you can say the Indian vegan recipes. I was doing it just out of passion, and this is how the channel started growing in the real sense with electric
Yeah.
cycles, and that is how it all continued.
Yeah, electric bikes is an interesting one because they've become really, at least in the UK, they've become really popular recently. You see electric bikes everywhere.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say I personally probably see more people on electric bikes than I do manual bikes that you actually have to like
Okay.
cycle with your legs on. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, they've just become so popular, and electric scooters as well. I don't know if you've ever done those on your channel or if those are at all popular in India, but yeah, electric scooters are really popular as well. So I mean, obviously, you're the one who knows about the analytics of your channel, but I can only see it getting more popular because it's just going to become a bigger and bigger market as things shift to more electric. Um,
Yeah.
so that's super interesting, and it's interesting that you started by doing vegan recipes as well. I didn't actually know that until you said it just before the recording, but before then I had no
Yeah.
idea that you'd started with vegan recipes. So that's interesting. So um, coming on to antinatalism, like how did you first come across antinatalism, and what came first? Because you said you became vegan in 2014 or 2016, I think you said.
2014 or 15. I don't remember exactly,
Yeah.
but I
So
think
what
it's
what
2014 or 15.
yeah. So what came first? Was it antinatalism or veganism? And how did you discover antinatalism?
Sure. Veganism came first. That happened
Mm.
because of my brother who was just scrolling on YouTube, and he came across. You don't mind sharing if I share about my journey with veganism, right?
Yeah. Go for it. I was going to ask you later anyway, but you share it now. Yeah.
Sure. Since veganism came first, I'm going to start with that. So my brother came across a documentary called as From Farm to Fridge on Facebook,
Yeah.
and he showed it to me, which covered the aspects about how the animals are treated in slaughterhouses and what exactly happens in the industry. And we
Mm.
both were baffled. We were shocked, and we turned vegetarian immediately in a day or two. But we weren't
Mm.
sure about dairy because dairy plays a very important role in Indian household. In my household, it did at least.
Mm.
And so that's how I became a vegetarian. And I was ignoring dairy particularly because it was much convenient for me, even though I knew
Mm.
the reality from that particular video itself. But that's when I got an Indian aspect of how the dairy industry works from a PETA documentary called Horrors in India's Dairy Industry. Yeah,
Mm.
that's the name, right? I saw the documentary and I was like, okay, it's not like so. What's in India is like we consider are mostly a lot of Indians are Hindus, and they
Mm.
consider cow as their holy. cow is our mother in a sense.
Mm.
So cow is a sacred animal for Hindus in India. So I thought, okay, the slaughtering of the cows might happen abroad, but that won't happen in India because so many people have their belief system stuck in it.
Yeah.
But after I saw the documentary, Horrors in India's Dairy Industry, that is when we realized, okay, it's not any different, but it's hidden in a different way. But it's
Mm.
still just kept hidden, and it happens under the cover. So that's how we stopped consuming dairy.
Mm.
And after that, couple of years went by, and my partner and my ex-girlfriend, when we were just casually talking, I had the perception that there's something wrong about giving birth to a human. Like we were struggling. There's so much happening to the animals. That is when we first made connection about real suffering, in the sense that animals go through so many things. Then we started looking around that it's not just about animals. Humans also go suffer in many multiple ways. So there's
Mm.
suffering everywhere, and something felt off. That okay, if there's so much suffering around, how can we possibly just bring another human without thinking twice about it? So something was odd. My family situation previously wasn't that uh, great either. When I used to live with my parents back in
Mm.
Mumbai, uh, so there were so many things I had just kept to myself and never shared with my family. And that's very common. That happens with my friends as well, because they keep their things to themselves. They can't
Mm.
open it about with their families. So there's a thought like, okay, I think differently, but there's nobody like me. So it's just me that I'm stuck with this. So, but when I shared it with my partner, she told me, okay, I think about it in the very similar fashion. There's something wrong about it, but we had that irk. Okay, how do we call it? Is there a term? And she's into social media. She's into on the internet a lot, and
Mm.
then that's how she came across the term antinatalism. Okay, what we were thinking, there's actually a term called as antinatalism,
Mm.
and she introduced me to that philosophy.
Yeah, that's super interesting that so it was sort of through veganism that you began to get an antinatalist feeling, but you had never been exposed to the idea directly. And it was only through
That's
your
right.
previous girlfriend doing research that she then found, you know, the term and the philosophy and stuff. And then what's it been like for you since then? Because I know in your video that you put together, um, you reference, David Benatar, and you seem very informed about antinatalism. You're not just someone who thinks, "Oh, I don't know, birth is bad." And that's the extent of it. Like you seem like someone who's read a lot around it. So, what was the process after that? When you first after actually learning about antinatalism.
Right. To be honest, Lawrence, I haven't read much about antinatalism. It's all the
Mm.
videos that you make, Amanda makes, Life Sucks makes. So all of you guys have helped me
Mm.
understand what antinatalism is, and it's not just about controlling the suffering, but it's morally wrong to the consent factor comes to it. So I had no idea.
Mm.
I didn't even go into thinking that okay, that we have to think about consent of an unborn child. But because of the videos that you made, exploring antinatalism podcast, which is Amanda's channel,
Mm.
um, Life Sucks made, all these videos really helped me understand the other aspect of antinatalism. But books I haven't read many. I'm not much of a reader, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
And there's one channel that goes by the name Varjit Satya. It's an Indian channel. So
Mm.
Varjit Satya means truth. Varjit means forbidden. So forbidden truth, the truth
Mm.
that is not talked about in the society. And so the person who runs the channel, his name is, sorry, can I check? Alok Mystic. Yeah, it's Alok Mystic.
Yeah.
So this person has made an entire series of 5 videos on antinatalism. He's done
Oh,
it five
really?
years ago. Yeah. But he has made these videos in Hindi and there are no
Mm,
subtitles to it. So I am assuming that you won't get what he's saying, and he speaks very fast.
yeah.
Yeah, and the so his videos were very influential to me as well. Like he's got the very first episode is like an hour long, and it's mind-boggling. It just keeps you thinking.
Mm,
And his videos in general are very nice, and
yeah.
so even that person played a very important role in helping me understand about the concept of antinatalism and giving a word to what my feelings were.
Mm. Yeah, that's super interesting. I'll I, so after this, I'll message you to get some links from you. If you could send me the link to that those
Sure,
videos, or if
for
he has a
sure.
playlist, I can then put it in the description, because there will be lots of people who watch this who do speak Hindi, or understand Hindi, so they will be able
Yeah.
to watch those and understand them. But that's super interesting that you're
And
understanding antenatal.
can I share something about I'm sorry to cut you off like this,
No, no, it's all
but
good.
because of so Varjit Satya, when I first saw the video, my mind was just blown off. Okay, that's a concept that I couldn't have imagined, but he's giving a
Mm,
word to it. And to my surprise, I expected the comments to not be supportive at all, but
mm,
literally every person in the comments were supporting. Okay, what you're speaking is right, and everybody had the very same reaction. We had this in our minds, but we just weren't sure that if it's just me or everybody around us thinks, or there
mm,
are more people that think like that. And the reaction to it was so positive. It was just overwhelming to see all that. And
mm.
it was brilliant. You should check it out if you haven't, bro.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I will check out those videos, even though I won't be able to understand the Hindi. I will. I will
Yeah.
check them out. And who knows? Maybe from this conversation, maybe someone will watch this and go, "Actually, I want to translate those videos or something." So maybe soon they will be in English as well. We'll have to see. But yeah, it's it's super interesting what you were saying about how there are a lot of positive comments underneath, because I think this topic is one of those topics where it's very outside of the mainstream. Not a lot of people think this way. In fact, most people think the direct opposite way. But the the people who do think this way are very dedicated to trying to get people to engage with it and promote it. And so the there's a lot of passion involved. And so I think wherever you go, if you're talking about antinatalism, you're always going to get a decent amount of support, even though there's not a lot of. And obviously, this doesn't always apply, but in a lot of places that you go online, less in person, but definitely online, you will get a decent amount of support, because even though the number of antinatalists is small, they're very dedicated and passionate, and so they will come and support you and leave positive comments, or support you in other ways. So I think that's probably why you saw those positive comments beneath, because what he was saying, or what they were saying, was obviously um, something that resonates with very few people, but those people will always find out where someone is speaking about antinatalism and try and support that, which I think is a good thing. I think there often is some discord in the antinatalist sphere, in the community, but overall it seems like people are very supportive. At least that's my experience. Maybe I've got a biased experience.
No, they really are. And I think one thing that helped his videos get a good reach is that even though he has named the playlist as antinatalism, about antinatalism,
Mm,
um, but he doesn't speak about that word. He doesn't use that particular word a lot, and neither did I
mm,
use in my videos even once. So neither have I mentioned it in my description. I have used just one hashtag which says antinatalism,
Yeah.
but the videos he calls it by child free by choice. So in India, um, there's a lot of anti-nationalism happening. So
Yeah.
people often consume anti-natalism with anti-nationalism, and
Yeah.
so it's much easier to communicate when you say child-free by choice. It's a very straightforward way of
Mm.
communicating. So people
Yeah.
then are mostly are not confused
Yeah, yeah,
that way.
that's super interesting as well because you said you checked it out. I recently did a video on antinatalism in India with two guys. One who is involved with the sort of stop having kids street outreach element, and another who I know is very well versed on antinatalism, very level headed, very informed. So I wanted to get those two on, and Tejas, who was one of them, he was saying about how this confusion between antinatalism and anti-nationalism. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that you say it as well. It's obviously something that's very prominent and kind of gets in the way of using the word. So it's interesting that you were
Yeah.
saying this other guy is avoiding using the word because it gets like confused a lot. Um,
No, I mean, he did use the word antinatalism in the video,
mm,
but I think had he used it in the title, it would have confused the people a little
yeah.
bit. So in the title, he was very certain what the video is about, which is child free by choice.
Mm,
And also the thing is that in India, even though a lot of people know how to speak English, so do I, but it is not our first language. Neither is mine.
mm,
So in the house we speak Hindi. In outside we speak Marathi, and when we go outside Maharashtra we speak Hindi again and other languages that way.
mm,
But English is not so commonly used. People are well versed with it, but it's not their first language, so
mm,
our vocabulary is not necessarily very good.
mm.
So like footpath versus sidewalk. So sidewalk is much, um, you get the gist, right?
Mm, mm.
Easier words
Yeah,
help
yeah,
us
yeah.
understand the concept easily. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, I get what you mean. And what how like is antinatalism just something that um you think about and you are and you've made this video on, or do you often engage with the antinatalist community to any extent, or does it not play that large a part in how you spend your time?
No, I'm not associated with any antinatalist communities or even vegan community for that matter. But I
Mm,
have talked about this concept with my friends who aren't antinatalist, and
mm,
I told them why I feel it's wrong to have kids, and these are the complications. There are you can't get consent of the child. And even today, what happened is that my partner's friend is was struggling so much with her health.
yeah.
She knows why my partner won't have kids. Whether the problem with consent is we can't have consent from an unborn child. But
Mm,
regardless of knowing all this, she's still trying to get a child via IVF, and she's got so many complications, health complications. She's been trying to bear a child for
yeah.
so long, but despite, and the doctor says that since because of your health complications, that could also um, transfer to the child. But that is the concern of the child is not even a priority at all.
Mm.
At most,
Yeah,
someone goes
like
like, "I want to have a child. I'm gonna have a child, and I'm gonna try
yeah,
to
yeah,
do the
yeah.
best that I can."
No, I mean, people are like this. I was watching. Have you seen the film Arrival?
No, I haven't.
So this film Arrival, I don't want to spoil it in any way.
Okay.
Actually, I can't really say what I'm about to say without spoiling it a bit. So if anyone wants to watch the film Arrival, then skip the next minute or so. So the film Arrival, and I will try to give as little detail as possible so that I don't spoil it for you. But the film Arrival is basically about aliens come to Earth, and we don't know why they're here. And so
Yeah.
there are two people appointed to try and learn how to communicate with them, because obviously we have to learn their language to be able to communicate with them.
Yeah.
And in the film, it gets there's a theme throughout the film, but it culminates at the end when you realize everything, that the main woman in the film somehow knows that her child, if she has a future child, will have a rare disease and will die very young. And
Yeah.
at the end of the film, it's shown that she actually chooses to have this child, right? And the child then goes through the disease and ends up dying. And her husband then actually leaves her for it, because he finds out that she knew that the child would have that disease, and he couldn't forgive her for it. He was like, why did you let us do this if you had that knowledge? Because he didn't have the knowledge, but she had the knowledge, right? And when I was watching this film, I got so pissed. I was agreeing with the dad. Like, I was so pissed off, because I was like, why are people like this when, like, even just removing all of the normal stuff that antinatalists have an issue with, like just like the regular suffering in life, right? She was presented with a case where this child is going to go through exceptional suffering, right? Like they're not going to live like a full life. They're going to have some years, they're going to go through pain, and then they're going to die. And the mother just did it anyway, because it's not about the kid. It's about the person who's creating the child. It's, I want a child, and therefore I'm willing to take the sacrifice on the child's behalf, that they're going to die early and they're going to go through that pain because I want the child. And it just infuriates me, because I'm like, who do you think you are to make that decision? Like, why is it up to you to decide that that child is now going to be lumbered with some rare disease?
I don't get the point at
Yeah.
all. So true. So true. I don't get the point at all. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's
That's all of us
it's really
basically.
frustrating.
That's all of us humans. We know that all of us are going to die, suffer in some ways, and still yet people have child offsprings regardless.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so well portrayed.
Yeah, I know. And I don't think I've said anything that would ruin it for people particularly, unless you're like super smart and you figure out the whole film from the very beginning. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would recommend watching that film, because it's an interesting film. It's called Arrival. But anyway, going back to, I want to ask you about the video you made now. So, as you've
Yeah.
said before, you made it to celebrate 50,000 subscribers. Um, and I wanted to ask you, like, why did you choose, why did you decide to do that at 50,000 as a form of celebration? And like, how did you approach it? So I've already mentioned before that my perception was that you really knew who your audience was going to be, because you knew that most of the people who were going to watch it were probably going to be your subscribers, or at
Yeah.
least a lot of them anyway. And so you knew that they probably weren't going to be exposed to this. So yeah, what was your sort of mindset going into it, and why did you decide to make that video?
I just wanted to make a different video off topic or something other
Mm,
than electric cycles on that occasion. And I thought, okay, what could I generally haven't explained about anything about my life on my channel, like who I
mm,
am, where I come from, what have I studied, what my parents have done. And I have told about nothing on my channel. So this was some sort of introduction in a way about how I feel, but I just shared one aspect about what I feel, and I wanted it to be something different on that occasion. And I thought, okay, what
mm,
saying something about veganism is what I do in a couple of my what I have already done in a couple of my videos. Although I haven't straight away mentioned veganism, but I have. While riding on an electric cycle, there are tabelas in India, which are basically where cows and buffaloes are kept for milking, and it's an open site. People can go there, they can purchase milk from there, and it happens openly. They just milk the cows in front of
mm,
us. So I have talked about veganism in that sense, like I'm going on a cycle and I've shown pregnant cows. I have
yeah,
shown the cow, how the cow is tied, how the calf is tied, and how they're forcefully milked, but not very directly, and saying there is a surgeon. But I've said that okay, this is what dairy industry does, so it's just best to avoid it. Not mentioning
yeah,
veganism and all, because I want the idea to get through. maybe not
Mm.
the term initially in the initial phases. Then I can proceed to
Yeah, yeah.
explaining, okay, there's a term to it. And so since I have already talked about veganism, I thought antinatalism could be the right suit for this video.
Mm.
And then I started exploring other videos on YouTube, and gathered best parts from multiple videos and compiled it in a way that I thought that would resonate with my audience, because my subscribers are mostly 20 to 40, in between that range, age
Mm.
range. So I compiled it in a way that it conveys straight away, as if I'm just explaining what my perspective is, not saying you
Mm.
have to become an antinatalist, or not explaining about antinatalism. Okay, this is who I am. This is like an introduction to myself, and this is why I
Mm.
won't have children. I'm not suggesting anyone anything in that video. Just
Yeah,
sharing an
yeah, yeah.
expression about how I feel.
Yeah. No, no, I get you. I get you. And what was the reaction like to the video? So, like, there seems to me that there would be like two different kinds of reaction, right? Because presumably the vast majority of people that come to your channel and subscribe to your channel are interested in electric bikes, right? So
Yeah.
you knew that at least a significant amount of the views on the video were going to be from those people. But you probably also knew that as soon as you make a video about antinatalism, you know loads of other people are now going to come over and watch it who have never seen your channel before, because there's always people
Yeah.
searching that term. So
Right.
what what was the reaction to the video, and were you able to notice different reactions from those two groups, or was it all sort of blurred and merged in?
No, the reactions are actually very evident. I can't divide them in two groups. You can say four groups. So one
Mm.
was positive. They were like, okay, what you're saying makes sense, and they were supportive towards it. One was negative. Then another group was asking about electric cycles. Like, why are you making video this? Tell us about this particular electric cycles. And the fourth group were downright abusive,
Yeah.
and yeah, they started attacking directly. So there were people, most of the people were positive, and
Mm.
even the people who didn't agree with the idea, a lot of them were respectfully disagreeing to the video. But there were mixed reactions in a way
Mm.
that I didn't expect.
Yeah, yeah.
So can I read out some reactions to you, if you
Oh
don't
yeah,
mind?
100%, go for it.
So, okay, this has come in front of me. So what Farzi Dhere says, काश तेरे मम्मी पापा को ये ज्ञान पहले आता तो हमें बकचोदी नहीं शेयर नहीं पड़ती. I mean, only had your parents thought of this, we wouldn't have got to see this bullshit video. And and there again started debate about Hindu Muslim, which is happening a lot in our country lately. Then it's like, so people straight away assume that I'm a Hindu, and so this guy says, but the thing is, there are but are there Muslim anti-natalists in India? Otherwise, India will turn into a mullah country, which is a derogatory term for Muslims. So they're
Yeah,
like, okay,
I've
only if Hindus are saying this, then the
mm.
Muslim population will grow. So downright abusive in the worst way I could have imagined also.
Yeah, when I did the video with Tejas and Sumit, they mentioned that in India, any topic you talk about instantly gets turned into a Muslim versus Hindu topic. It becomes
Totally,
divided.
totally, bro. I
Yeah,
don't get it. I just don't get it why.
yeah, yeah,
Oh man, crazy, crazy. So
yeah.
it's become very difficult to talk about anything, because people are gonna target you as a Hindu saying this, or as a Muslim saying this, or as a
Mm.
Christian saying this, but not as a person saying that applies for
Yeah,
everyone.
exactly.
Yeah, that
Yeah, yeah.
aspect is taken out completely.
Yeah, yeah. So it was interesting to see in the comments there that like that came up, because they were saying how big of an issue that was. So yeah, it's just
Yeah,
interesting that it came up in the
some
comments.
people are straight away to bacha peace and peaks. There's a comment by Peace and Peaks. That person says, तू बच्चा पैदा करेगा, लिख के ले लो. I write it down. You're gonna have a kid later on. You're gonna change your mind. And you seem to be a sick person. I've never seen so much negativity in a person. So
Yeah, yeah,
downright people calling me bald, making fun of it. But
yeah, yeah.
majority of the
Classic.
comments are positive, so I'm glad it's a mix of both and not just one way,
Mm,
not just hate.
yeah, yeah. No, no, 100%. And
Yeah.
actually, talking about that person who left the comment about, oh, you'll change your mind, etc., etc. Um, you mentioned to me that you wanted to talk about the process of getting a vasectomy in India. Um,
Oh yeah.
so what was your what was it, what was your experience like trying to get one in India, and when did you get one, how old were you?
I got my vasectomy done in 2017, which is 6 years ago. Yeah. And it wasn't easy at all.
Mm,
There are rules that you have to meet in order to get a vasectomy, but these
mm,
rules are on paper but are not necessarily followed. It's a gray area, you can say.
mm,
But when I first wanted to get a vasectomy, I called up many of the hospitals here. I called up in Pune, which is the city where I live. I called up in Bangalore. Um, I called up in Mumbai. So many hospitals, and the very first thing most of them asked me was, "What's your age? Why do you want to have a vasectomy? What's the reason? Are you having any complications? Is there any medical reason you're having a vasectomy? You want to have a
mm,
vasectomy?" And the third question was, "Are you married? If you are
mm,
married, do you have any children?" So it's downright assumed that you have to be married, you have to have at least one or two kids, and only after that you can have a vasectomy. So
yeah,
uh, that's like the procedure that people have in their minds, and also it is on paper, but it's not necessarily strictly stringently followed.
mm,
So for about a month, 1.5 months, I've been calling hospitals. I've been asking if I can get a vasectomy done, and what would be the charges. But even before getting to the charges and costs and that, everybody used to downright deny me because I'm not married, I don't have children, so we
mm,
cannot uh, perform a vasectomy on you. And but but via a friend, I came to know about a doctor who happens to that friend's friend only. So that is how
mm,
he agreed, because okay, we know us mutually. That person agreed, okay, do you really want to get it done? He got me to sign an agreement that this is
mm,
being done by your personal choice. There's no pressure, and you understand the risks involved with it. But because I found that particular doctor via a friend, I was able to get the vasectomy done.
mm.
But otherwise, if I had to do it, I don't know if I could have been able to do it. It's not easy at all.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I spoke with Tejas and Sumit, they were saying they were saying almost the opposite. They were saying, I think, or I might be misremembering and misrepresenting them, but I think they were saying that they thought it was actually relatively easy to be able to get sterilization in India. So does it vary on the region? Because I know India is a federal country, right? So it has states. So would it? Does
Uh,
it? Do you know if it
it's
varies by
easy
state?
to Yeah, it does. In UP, which is the most which is the highest population density in the country, it is doctors recommend getting sterilized, but it doesn't go for men. Usually, women are the ones who are advised to get sterilized. So
Right.
it's yeah. So it's because of the culture. There's um, men are generally like, no, I'm not going to do anything to my body. If there's anything you want to take care of, it's you're going to do it. And then there's not even open conversation between couples
Mm,
that they can do. So females are usually the one who are advised to get a tubectomy done, even though it is a much complicated process as compared to vasectomy.
mm,
Vasectomy is like snip snap, go get done with it. but
yeah, yeah.
but that is not the case. Like, despite of all these complications, especially in the rural India, Um, so we have a population, but we can't necessarily say that this population is a result of consensual sex.
Mm.
A lot of times, especially in the rural areas, women are forced to have babies, and it's like most of the course, like it's not even an option for them. And
Mm.
you just have sex. What's the result of it? That's the child. You just keep the child, and you keep doing it until unless and until you have a male child. So it's everything is oriented towards having a male child, and the divide between males and females is extremely high in India, which results into tubectomy being much popular than vasectomy.
Yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
there's much more males.
Sorry? Yeah, the
So
population,
yeah.
you mean population wise?
Exactly. So in the Indian population, there's a lot more men than women.
Previously there were, but right now the population of females is increasing as well. But
Okay.
it is more about the ideology that males are, what's the word, dude? That males misogyny, right? It's very
Uh,
misogynistic that
right.
everything is about towards the males, and females have to
Okay. Yeah,
compromise
yeah,
and
yeah. I get what you
in that
mean.
way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not able to get the word for that.
No, no, but I get what you mean. Yeah, yeah. What's the reaction been from people about you getting a vasectomy in India, especially since it seems like the region you're in is more difficult to get? Like, do your family and friends know, and how did they react?
So my parents still don't know about it,
Mm,
even 6 years later, and that's something I can't share with my parents.
yeah,
They would
yeah,
be furious, like, how can you do that? So that's the
yeah,
constraint that we have in between. We don't have an open communication per se.
yeah.
But when I shared it with my friends here in Pune, that I just got a vasectomy done, most of them were like, "Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? What if you change your decision? What if you change your decision 10 years down the line, 15 years
Yeah.
down the line, if you want to have a child?" So that's a very strict decision you have made, and nobody really quite supported me. But
Mm,
it's not like nobody hated me either, but there wasn't support in that sense. And
yeah, yeah,
everybody's like, "You have made a bad decision, you're going to regret it."
yeah, yeah. No, no, I get what you
Yeah.
mean. I think that's a very it's a common experience people have in a lot of different cultures. Even in the UK, where the UK is maybe one of the more socially progressive countries in the world, and
Yeah.
you have a similar story here when it comes to that, which is interesting. Um, I've been sort of referencing it throughout our conversation about how I did the video with Tejas and Sumit about antinatalism in India, and you said that
Yeah.
you'd watched it. You're also in
Yeah.
India, so when watching that video, do you think we missed anything out? Like, obviously, we didn't talk about. We actually forgot to talk about your video. I actually messaged them afterwards, and I was like, "Oh shit, guys, we forgot to talk about Maddy's video." Um, and
Yeah, that's what you
we
missed
didn't
out, bro.
yeah. And we didn't talk about the forbidden truth guy that you were talking about. I'm not sure if either of them are aware of him. But is there anything else that you think we maybe missed out there about antinatalism in India?
No, I think you have covered a lot of things. In fact, a
Mm,
lot of things that even I wasn't aware about the
yeah, yeah,
census not happening and the population count not being kept up to date. So it was
yeah, yeah.
insightful for me also. Can I ask you about how your experience was when you shared with your friends and family about you became an antinatalist and you're not going to have any child?
Yeah, so my most of my family still don't know. Um, the family that do know, um, basically just don't talk about it. It's sort of like a sore subject, so we just don't talk about it. Um, when it comes to my friends, a lot of my friends now are mostly vegan, and a lot of them are also antinatalist because those are just the circles I move in now. So a lot of them were either very interested or very supportive. I had a few that, think it's dumb and, argue against it or whatever. But when I see them, we just don't talk about it. It's like the world is such a big and complicated thing. There's so many other things to talk about. So it's like I don't have to go round and talk about this one subject with every single person. So it's like the
Yeah.
people who don't really gel with it, we just talk about other stuff. Like it's fine. Um, so I think my experience has been like in the middle. It hasn't been really bad. It hasn't been really good. It's kind of just like, some good, some bad, but mostly it's just like whatever.
Some people accept, some people don't. Okay.
Yeah, but the culture in the UK is, I think is a lot more open than other places in the world. Like in some places, you could genuinely be in danger if you spoke about this subject, and in a lot of countries, you would get like ostracized maybe from your family and your community. In the UK, that in the most cases, it wouldn't happen. Um, in the UK, at most, people would just kind of think you're weird, and maybe like silly, but it wouldn't be a massive deal because I think people are relatively open here, and they I think a lot of people actually enjoy hearing about controversial ideas. So yeah,
Oh, that's nice. In India, I think it's much more accepted by millennials, Gen Z, and
yeah,
but it's not. But the grown-ups don't quite accept it very easily. My parents have a habit of calling me after every video. I like the video that you've made, but and they do it on most videos. They've done it,
mm,
and hasn't been a single occasion where okay they haven't commented either positive or negatively about. But they've called me to let me know how they found the video to be. But after that particular video, they didn't call me, so that was surprising to me also.
one thing I quickly wanted to just ask, and this is kind of like my last question. Um,
Yeah.
is like, what are your future plans for your channel?
Yeah. So I've been making videos about electric cycles till now, which and I have taken a break for about a month and a half.
Mm,
I haven't uploaded any video at all, and I'm taking a shift and I'm going to continue with electric cycles, but I'm going adding another aspect of travel to it. So me and my dog are going to be exploring the country, trying to understand about what actually people think, trying to interact with people, get to know them better. Certainly not going to interact. Certainly, it won't be possible to interact with vegans or antinatalists because there aren't many. You'll
mm,
find vegans and antinatalists in the city, but our intention is not just to explore the cities, but to explore everywhere, even the
mm.
countryside and everywhere. So that's the idea. I have a rooftop tent on my car right now, and next week on, we're just heading out, gonna have fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that sounds good, and I think you're gonna have like a lot of fun exploring India because I've been to the south of India. I've been to India once, and I went to Kerala and
Okay,
Tamil Nadu.
okay.
Yeah, and
How do you like it there?
it was super interesting. I was only there for 2 weeks, so you can't get like a real feel for somewhere when you're only there for 2 weeks. But it was such an interesting place to go, and I want to visit India again, because I mean, it's such a big country. There's just so many places to visit and see, um, but it was just it was a fucking crazy place. There's just people everywhere. There's noise everywhere. Like there's Coca-Cola and Vodafone adverts everywhere. Everywhere I went, there was an advert for Vodafone. It was crazy.
When was this? When did you visit India? How many
Um,
years back?
it would have been like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Um,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah, not super recently, but not insanely long ago. I was still a
Yeah.
teenager when we went, but yeah, it was yeah, it was a really cool place, really interesting. Um, but when I went, I wasn't vegan when I went. I became vegan later, so it'd be interesting to go back to India now that I'm vegan and see what it's like. Um, and
You're definitely
yeah,
welcome to India. Come over. It's not easy to find vegan food, but it's not as difficult, I think, as it would be in countries where the staple diet is based on meat. So
yeah,
since
yeah,
there's a lot of vegetarian food in here, I think it should be fairly easy. Even I don't know for sure. I haven't explored the entire country, but I would
yeah,
know
yeah.
that in the years to come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, 100%. I will visit India at some point again. It's just a matter of when. But I'm looking forward to it as well. And now that I know a few more people in India, being able to visit them when I'm there. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And uh, there are a few questions I also wanted to ask you about that are
Okay,
connected to
yeah, go for it.
antinatalism and what you think. Yeah. So since you're into antinatalist activism, you inspire people to become antinatalists and you give them the idea about why it's not right to have children. But what do you think? It's a very hypothetical question, but what do you
Mm-mm,
think would happen if our ideas reach to everyone and they get it, and the population diminishes all of a sudden, like we have seen in Japan, the
mm,
consequences of which have been the government trying to get more people somehow in the country so that they can help the elder population.
mm.
So, what do you think could be the consequences of such hypothetical situation if that happens?
Well, so when we before the start of the recording, I told you that I just finished a live stream. The live stream that
Yeah,
I just did was on this exact topic, exactly what you're asking. I just did a 2-hour live stream on that topic, because there's a documentary called Birth Gap, which is all about population decline, population collapse, and what the impacts of that could be and maybe are at the moment, because the guy who made this documentary is basically arguing that population collapse is going to come soon. Our population is still going up, but he thinks it's going to reach a peak and then it's going to nosedive. Um,
yeah,
and to be honest, I don't know exactly how the future is going to play out, but I think I basically agree with him. I think birth rates are falling across the world, not everywhere, but as countries become more economically developed, birth rates do tend to fall. So just as more places become more economically developed, they will fall. So the first thing I would say in answer to your question is that I think this issue isn't strictly one for antinatalists to answer, because this process is already happening without antinatalism being involved. So I think it's a
yeah,
wider conversation for people to have. But just to answer your question directly, I think basically two things, right? I think there will be issues caused by declining birth rates, but I think those are our issues to deal with. I don't think they're issues for us to put on a new person to have to deal with and bear the brunt of solving, because it's like, okay, there are a lot of old people that need care and support, and that is an issue. But why should we create a new person who's going to be a wage slave, basically, to have to deal with that problem? It's not their problem until we
absolutely.
create them.
True,
Yeah, so that's
true.
that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is that whilst I recognize that there are going to be issues, I think we would probably benefit from changing our mindset on it and seeing it more as an opportunity for change rather than something that we have to fight against by throwing loads of money and effort at getting people to have more kids. Because
Mm.
a lot of um, a lot of countries and governments are already putting in pro-natalist policies to give people who have kids money, give them tax breaks, give them support, and none of them seem to be working. And so what that tells me is that that approach to the issue, at least so far, is a failing battle. They're going to lose that battle. And so it
As
seems
in, they
like a
are
more
trying everything to get the population back, but it's not happening. Is that what you mean?
yeah, exactly. And this is being
Okay.
seen a lot in Japan and South Korea. And I think
Okay.
what that tells me is that a more mature and maybe even successful approach is going to be to embrace population and birth rate decline, and basically take the approach of like, okay, well, the population is declining. How do we work with this so that the outcome is a smaller population with a higher quality of life and standard of living? Um, because at the moment, people are saying that's a problem and we need to resist it, but that doesn't seem to be working as an approach so far anyway, which is my understanding. What a better
Yeah.
approach seems, let's embrace this and try and use it so that there's a better outcome in the end. um, so that would be my answer to your question, if that answers your question.
Oh, yeah, true. I also feel since the world is not equally distributed population wise, so there's a lot of population density in one area while there's not a lot of population density, with a small amount of population density in one area. So, say if Japan is to have an aged population in the coming years, there's always a solution for immigrants to be in Japan and help the population out. But then it
Yep.
comes to that, okay, these are the particular borders, and we have to set regulations because that could affect our particular culture. So that is where all the complications arise, is what I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if you are
exactly.
if
Yeah.
we are afraid in a way that we have to preserve our culture, but because of which we can't let the outsiders inside, then we're gonna be helpless in this particular loop forever.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think your point about immigration and people moving around is right. If you just take like, India as an example, you were talking about how there's this big, fight between Hindu, Muslim. Everything turns into a Hindu Muslim problem. Like,
Yeah.
people sort themselves into different groups, and those different groups always find ways to disagree and fight with each other, whether that be intellectual fights, verbal fights, political fights, or violent fights like military. People are always going to find ways to conflict with each other. And so the idea of having mass migration across the world to balance out population, it seems like that could go very wrong, because you'll have different groups of people mixing in very significant
Yeah.
ways, and those people will always find ways to fight with each other, unless it's really well managed and integration is done well.
Yeah, right from the birth, people have to be taught in the sense that, it's stupid to fight, and if we just keep
Yeah,
emphasizing right from the birth that we are Hindus, we are Muslims, we belong in this particular boundaries, which are
yeah,
arbitrary, like it's not a natural boundary, it's not created by nature, it's just in our
yeah,
minds. Okay, this is a particular boundary, we're not allowed to cross this, and yeah, upbringing would have to play a big role in that, I feel, in changing
yeah,
the
yeah,
mindset
yeah,
entirely.
yeah.
Do you think AI could
Yeah, go on.
do you think if the population is to be reduced in a very drastical manner because of people understanding the consequences of having child, how it's not right
Yeah.
for the child, if people understand that, do you think AI could take over? Is that not a context of this conversation?
No,
AI
I
could
think
become
it's fine.
sentient in some way.
Yeah. I think it's a good question. I think basically is what you're asking, like, to help alleviate the problems of population decline, can we use artificial intelligence? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, not currently because we don't have
Yeah,
sentient
yeah.
AI as of now. But to replace humans, if somebody develops AI, do you think that that's a possibility?
Um, I think I don't think it's just a possibility. I think it's an inevitability. I think AI will play a bigger and bigger role. I mean, we're already seeing AI in its very early stages play a significant role in human life already. So I think it will only become more significant over time. And no doubt there will be implications from artificial intelligence for
Yeah.
demographics, population decline, birth rate decline. Um, how that will actually look, I don't know. Um, Maybe we'll get to a point where, like with Chat GPT at the moment, you can ask it a question and it pumps out an answer, right? Very quickly. Um,
Yeah.
Now, it may not always be the most informed answer, but it's only going to get better over time. And so maybe we will end up using artificial intelligence for problem solving. So maybe when we're faced with the problem of population and birth rate decline, AI will assist us in coming up with innovative ways to mitigate the problems that are caused by that. But again, like I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know exactly how that's going to happen or if it will
Yeah.
happen. Like maybe it won't happen, but it seems likely that that would happen.
Yeah. Yeah, true. And
Mm.
since you said that, since the population, the birth rate is declining, so I think even though most people's won't call themselves antinatalist, like as in though they don't believe that nobody should
Yeah,
have child, but
yeah.
since people are getting more educated, they are surely having the mindset that it's not very necessary and it's still a burden, and that's the reason we are seeing these decline in the birth rates.
Yeah, it does. It all of the countries that, or the majority of the countries that have the declining birth rates at the moment are all of the more industrialized ones where people have gone through more years of education. So it does seem
Yeah.
that the more educated on average a population is, the less children they have. Um, yeah. So yeah, I'd agree. That's my understanding anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why it should be easier to convey about antinatalism to these
Mm.
particular groups of people because they already have the similar mindset, and we can see
Yeah.
that statistically as well.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
If less people tend to want to have kids anyway, there will be less cognitive dissonance there. So they probably will be, yeah, easier to convince. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what do you think about, do you think it's our moral right since we are born without our permission? Do you think it is our moral right to at least have the option to end ourselves if we don't like the journey?
I think I mean, even from a personal level, I really hope that the right to die or euthanasia, however assisted dying, however people want to term it, I really hope that that is widely accessible by the time I get to the point where I will likely die, because like it like everyone is going to die, so you have two options. Do you want to be that in a controlled way where you have dignity, confirmed, or do you want to have it in an uncontrolled way where you don't know how you're going to die? You're going to degrade over time, and you might get dementia, and you're not really yourself then. You're always very confused, you don't know who the people are. You might get cancer, and it's very painful and stuff. Like, I think people have this attachment to the idea of things being natural, and given that death is natural, people have this aversion to allowing people to have control over it. But I think, given that no one decided to be here, everyone was forced here. The least that people should have access to is a choice on when and how they exit it, I believe. Now, I also understand that there are practical issues. Obviously, you want to have safeguards in place for the system. You don't want it to be a slippery slope so that governments then suggest people to get to be euthanized for their convenience, as in for the government's convenience. Obviously, you don't want that to happen. You want the decision to be made fully by the person when they've weighed up all of the pros and cons, and there's no coercion involved. But I understand there's all those practical issues. The thing I would say is that every ethical issue has practical issues, but it doesn't mean that we just outright say people can't have access to them, right? So, and this
Yeah,
goes for a whole
totally.
this goes for a whole range of issues. So, yeah, I'm a big supporter of people being able to choose when and how they die. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, sometimes I think it's so cruel that people are just let to live despite of the diseases they have internally, and they just don't have an
Mm.
option to end their suffering. Like, it's 2023, we certainly can have the technology if we want to,
Mm.
but we don't have the intentions to bring such technology and keep it accessible to the citizens.
Yeah. 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 No. No.
Yeah, man, it's
100%. I agree.
sad.
Yeah. Did you have
Oh,
any other
that's so
questions?
bad. Oh, let me just check. I've asked what I came into my mind.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I wanted to, do you fear who would take care of you when you're old? That is one of my, I understand I'm not going to have a child because it's
Mm.
going to be wrong to that person. All the reasons are valid. But there's a certain amount of fear that if I have a partner at that time,
Mm.
then we both are going to be old in that sense. And it won't be much easier to take care of each
Mm.
other as compared to a younger person who could easily take care of us. So do you fear that outcome when you're old?
Yeah, so like I was saying before, like I hope that access to the right to die will be available, but there's a possibility that it won't be, right? So I may be in the
Yeah.
position where I am old and I don't have like children that I've created to look after myself. The first thing I would say is that if you have children, you're not guaranteed that they will look after you. So I think the statistic in America is that only 1.5% of people um, have significant support from their offspring when they're in old age care. Um, I
Okay.
might be getting those numbers slightly wrong, but if anyone wants to check that, I had a conversation with Dr. J from Child Free Wealth, and he talks about it on that podcast. So I will link that in the description for people to check. But yeah, so there's no guarantee even if you have a kid that will be the case. But yeah, if I'm in a situation where I've gotten old and I'm losing the capacity to look after myself, and I don't have access to the right to die, yeah, I admit like that is a less than perfect, a less than desirable situation. And I do at the moment I don't really have any anxiety over it. I think it's because I'm young still. But as I
Yeah.
get older, I think I will get more anxiety over that. And I think that's just something that antinatalists need to come together about and help each other try and figure out those problems of what can we do. Because obviously, one thing that we could do is just save up more money over our lives, because obviously we won't have kids to pay out money for. So we'll be able to save more money over our lives. So then we can finance private care when we're older. That's one way of doing it. Maybe antinatalists can get to a point where they can actually just organize group care homes where it's like an antinatalist care home where they collectively pay for carers to come in and look after them, and everyone there is an antinatalist or something. That would be a really cool thing. Um, but yeah, I think it's a valid issue that doesn't have a perfect answer to it, and it is something that probably will give me more anxiety over time. But yeah, that's my problem. It's not yeah, like you said, it's not a problem to put on a kid. It's my problem to figure out.
Yeah, yeah. Hearing from now what you have said, that the certain solutions to this could be like saving up money and have an organization, or organize a way to support yourself. So I think, is it antinatalism is much accessible for privileged people as compared to people who aren't so privileged, because
Mm,
they have no capacity of saving money for their own future, and they can only rely on their own offspring in that sense. Neither do they have the knowledge to, or anyone to suggest
mm,
that, but neither do they have an option to sustain themselves
mm,
um, in their old age, or just, and the other option is to just rot and die.
mm. No,
Yeah.
I agree. I think that approach to the issue that I just laid out is only accessible to certain people. The people it isn't accessible to, um, I'm not quite sure how they would do it. And this is what I mean by, as antinatalists, we need to come together and try and come up with solutions to this. And we can work with other. It's not just antinatalists that have this problem. Obviously, child-free people, childless people. There are many people now that are going to be in this situation because there's a significant amount of at least economically developed countries who don't like adults who don't have children. So there are many people in this situation, not just antinatalists. So I think as this difference between births and elderly people increases, this is going to be an issue that is increasingly spoken about. So alternatives and solutions are going to be discussed inside and outside of the antinatalist sphere. But I agree with you that some people are in a position where they are basically like just fucked. Like they're in a really shit situation. And
Yeah.
obviously their parents shouldn't have put them in that position in the first place. But it's really shit that they are in that situation. And maybe we need to think about starting organizations that can help these people, antinatalist
Yeah.
organizations that are working on this issue. And I would encourage people to get involved in that issue. I think it's an important issue, but yeah, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah. I think, we
Yeah.
can learn from countries who are dealing with this plummeting birth rate issue as of now, like Japan, Italy, Germany.
Mm,
Even in India, Sikkim has a birth rate of 1.1 births per woman, which is
mm,
way below the 2.1 birth mark, which is to be
yep.
achieved by everyone to keep up with the rate.
Yeah.
So even they are taking drastic measures to encourage people, and that they have a very easy access to vasectomy, tubectomy, and sterilization. And that's again, Sikkim has a good amount of population who are literate, good amount of women who are literate, and when that happens, again they saw a decline in the birth rate, and again the government is now trying to deal with the declining birth rate.
Mm,
So it's a circle that they are dealing with, and I think we can learn from Sikkim, Japan, Italy, how they're dealing with right
yeah.
now, that we can help in the future. Maybe use AI technology, or I
Mm,
don't know how, and neither do I have an answer for this.
yeah. No, 100%. And thank you for asking those questions. Like it's they're interesting things that I think antinatalists do need to think about. So I think they're worth raising. But yeah, where can people follow you if someone's been watching this and they think I want to stay up to date with Maddy and what he's doing? So obviously I'll link your YouTube channel below. But are there any other places where you put out stuff for people to follow?
Just YouTube and Instagram. It's Maddy
Okay,
Koko on both the platforms.
okay, cool. I'll link both of them. But
Definitely,
yeah,
thank you.
thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed it, and I've been looking forward to speaking to you actually because I remember ages ago. How long ago was it when you put out your video?
A couple of months ago, I think 6 months ago. Oh,
Oh,
it's
is it
been a
only six
year.
months?
I just
Yeah, I was
checked
going to
it.
say I thought it was longer. Yeah. I thought it was longer than that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's been a
I
year.
remember, yeah, I remember watching it as soon as it came out and thinking this is like a really well put together video, and I commented below saying how I think it's really good. So I think it's like a valuable contribution to the community online. So thank you
Thank
for
you so
doing that.
much.
No, and thank you for doing it, and thank you for coming on. I've really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you for having me, Lawrence, and you're doing incredible work. You're reaching out to people who aren't aware of this idea, just like you did with me. And to all your friends, even Amanda, Life Sucks, and I'm not saying Forbidden Truth. Forbidden Truth is not the name. It's Varjit Satya. Even
Mm.
Varjit Satya. So all you guys are doing incredible work, and so just keep up with it, guys. Incredible. I love it.